maybe I have a mindset about addressing what's going on with these kids, or maybe I don't know how, and like I need to build the skill to do it.
Yeah.
Or maybe she did. I find it hard to believe that she wouldn't know though, because when you look at her trackers, they are so different, at least in math, than the rest of her class.
Right.
And so we need to uncover like why is it that these kids haven't been addressed all year long, basically, right? And so I think that for her, a change has to be she is starting to prioritize this in a different way than she's done beforehand, right? Like she's starting to prioritize it in a different way, meaning like the way she's tracking, you know, how culture stuff is playing out in her classroom perhaps with these 4 kids, or, you know, the way that she's providing different kinds of instruction for math and for literacy that we just talked through. I mean, that's the overall change. If in a month or two, when we look at her data and we talk about where she is with her classroom and we see that, oh my gosh, when we're talking about all her kids, we're not just talking about how like Antonio and Joshua and Shamir and them are all behind. We're actually talking about how they, you know, improved the pace. Like maybe they still are behind, but they're not as far behind as they were. You know, and maybe they aren't like the leaders of the classroom, but maybe they're moving towards becoming leaders of the classroom culturally, you know? Like we should see some evidence of that happening. And that only is going to happen if she prioritizes them. I mean, what else? So there's a clear student core member level change where she has to prioritize these students in a different way.
Right.
What else needs to happen for her? It sounds like we need to do some skill building with her too, right? I mean, specifically around, well, we need to figure out what skill building needs to happen for literacy, at least.
Yes, for sure. I mean, Gail's got a lot of good feedback from her output there at the session, so she feels like Mary is in a good place in terms of like execution of literacy. I need to look at her X ticket, but she gave me some good feedback about Mary.
So what do you
So I
need?
think I need to know if she is doing this piece about getting the clarity of the cause behind her low students' gaps. And if she's not doing that, that's going to be a clear, easy win. Like, let's walk through those steps. So PD changes, I need to provide that skill building if it is a deficit, in fact. But prior to that, I have to just determine if it is actually a deficit.
And what else do you think needs to change in your practice to make sure Mary gets to where she needs to be? Think about the way you've been interacting with Mary thus far, and think about like sort of the pace of her development at this point.
I think that I've just kind of like kept Mary over here because she's okay, you know, strong CIE, strong planner, and I haven't like really been pushing her. But the things like she's had these same students who have been behind the whole year, and I haven't been pushing her on that because, you know, overall, you know, Mary's okay. And so I have to get out of that mindset. So the PD change is to really push Mary more for what she needs. I don't know if that's specific enough, but.
Well, I think you named one specific change, which is just the mindset shift that you're making, right? Where it's like, I'm not just going to assume that she's okay because you know, look at her data and everything seems to be fine. I'm just going to let her move along at the pace she's moving along. I mean, you are prioritizing her in a very different way. She's a core member who's solidly solid right now. Solidly solid, that's right. But you realize that in order to get her to be a STIG Games teacher first and then to be a TAL teacher later on, like, you have to do additional things to push her.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
So you have a different sense of prioritization right now about how you're wanting to spend that time. I also think, and this goes to what we talked about on Friday, the way you're going to have to monitor her is going to look very different than what you've done in the past now. So like, where we've been at this point in the conversation, like you've gotten pretty clear on what you want the student and the teacher level change to look like. And even some of the actions that you're going to take to drive those changes. How you monitor progress, though, is going to be just as important as making sure that you've defined the right things to monitor progress for. So, like, how are you going to monitor progress for Mary? How are we going to make sure that she does that the changes happen that need to happen, and that you take the actions and that she takes the actions that need to be taken.
Well, I think it's just like the accountability piece. I want her to share her drafts of her weekly phonics and sight words goals for her subset of struggling readers and share that with me. And then when she assesses it, share with me their progress and just send her reflection on what worked and what needs to change based on any successes or gaps that still exist in terms of like her implementing this process we're working towards weekly phonics and sight words goals. So I think that's one thing I will definitely do, is have her share that with me.
What about for the cultural piece?
The same thing, to share what is her goal, whatever benchmark she sets, whether it be 1 week or 2 week, share what that goal is, and then at the end of that time, share with me her reflection on whatever she achieved in whatever way she assesses it at the end of that time. And I think that's an easy one because, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I literally could see this, like, if you're just checking in with Mary once a week over the next several weeks to gauge, like, progress here, you know, you're starting off talking about, okay, tell me about Antonio, you know, Jeremy, Joshua, Shamir, Kenneth, where are they this week? How do they do in terms of, like, living up to the cultural standards that you set for your classroom? What did you do, what expectations did you set for them, like, where did you see them improve, all that good stuff? And then let's talk specifically about the word strategies that you use with them, how they do on the spelling test for the week or whatever the word assessment was. And then let's talk about what that means for next week, what changes you're going to make, all that good stuff. I think it helps that Mary is a very reflective core member, so hopefully she can manage up to you in this process, and you should probably set her up to do so. Like, maybe you don't necessarily have to be in person to meet with her every week. Maybe it's, you know, each week she's sending you something, or maybe each week you hop on the phone for about 15 minutes and talk through things. Like, I think it's important for you to figure out a process that's going to work best with her, which is the last point that I want to make sure. Like, how are you going to invest Mary in making this change happen? How are you going to make sure that she's on board with, like, taking the right actions, because you both agree that these are the right actions, and then, you know, monitoring herself and, you know, sort of managing up to share with you progress towards these actions?
I think I would start by tying in her vision again, but like after we've done the work of identifying the subset. So we're like, okay, you know, you have let me know that Joshua and Antonio, Kenneth, you know, they're your boys who are really struggling. Tell me, like, how they fit into your vision. What do you want for them? What do you want to be true, or what do you want to be different by May? And like having her say that, and then do the piece about the how I'm going to like be monitoring her progress towards this. So I want to start with her talking about what she wants to be true with them, so that she understands, or really has internalized that it's going to take some extra work, and hopefully that will magically bring about this commitment to doing the work.
And I think you're right, like, hopefully the vision will do that, but I think you're going to have to also continue to make sure you're bringing her back to her vision, because I think it's going to be really important.